Hey guys, what's going on? Druzy here, back again with another tier list video here for South Park Phone Destroyer here for the month of July. So there was some very minimal balance changes that happened between June and July for the seasonal reset, and because of that there is not going to probably be too much change to this tier list from the tier list that we had or discussed last month's video. But there are a few things that I did want to discuss though with the changes. There are some minor changes that I did make to the tier list based on some of the way cards have been performing in the current meta structure right now. So we're going to talk about each of those and each of the current themes within the current game. But remember that very soon a new theme is going to be coming to Phone Destroyer. The Superheroes theme is going to be coming soon, and when that does happen, we will have all of this updated for you next month. When that new theme goes live, there will be a lot of changes, most likely 10 new cards coming to the game with the new theme's launch. We have plenty of details and information on that that's going to be coming when I get the okay from Red Links to make that information available to you guys, which should happen next week when they have their live stream on Monday to talk and discuss about those new changes. And then we'll also talk about the ranks of the current themes right now within the game and whether or not any changes have been made from last month. Alright guys, so quickly we're going to look at the adventure theme. So as you see, I have two cards bracketed right now, Ink and Craig, and of course Swashbuckler Red. Swashbuckler Red is the newest card that has been added to the game for the adventure theme, and the newest card added to the game, period. So she has recently emerged. She is a 4 energy cost fighter card. You guys know about her. You've seen her in gameplay footage both by myself, and I'm sure you guys have been able to play around with her now in the current game. Swashbuckler Red right now, I put her in the A tier as we go along with this. If you guys want a refresher on what the tiers mean, look at the June video. That will give you the updates or the discussion of what these tiers actually mean. So I put her in the A tier primarily for the reason of that I think she does have good value. I don't play her very well, but I'm sure that there are some people that do play her well. I think that once people get her to a solid level, there are some that already have her level 4, level 5. I have her to level 3 right now, which I feel like is the norm for most people. Probably have her to at least level 2, maybe level 3, or they may not even have her at all. But I think Swashbuckler Red has some value. She does a good job of distracting certain cards. I think if you figure out a way to pair her correctly, even synergize her with some of the other cards within this own theme, something like Fireball, something like Ink and Craig in his own right, even Stain of Many Moons, something that can do multiple AoE damage, I think that Swashbuckler Red has a lot of potential. I've tried some different wacky combinations with her, but again, I don't play her very well, but I'm sure there are some that play her much better than I do. But once I think I get her down, I think I can possibly make some more viable decks to go along and synergize with her. And maybe even the new theme will provide some synergy that will make her even that much stronger. But I think that she, again, provides some value. She's a good counter, mostly a defensive style card, but she has pretty decent stats, pretty decent scaling. I showcased her in my new card video, which I talked about her, her level 7 stats. So if you guys want to know that, it's in that video as well. But I think that Swashbuckler Red provides value. Maybe she could be a B tier. I think she's A though, just with what value she could provide if played correctly. But again, I don't play her very well, but I'm not going to be biased and say that she's bad just because I don't play her well. And I bracketed Ink and Craig. I know we discussed Ink and Craig already in last month's video, but I have widely and strongly been stating for months now that Stain of Many Moons is the strongest legendary card in the game. I don't feel that way anymore. I feel like Ink and Craig is hands down the strongest legendary card in the game, and the reason because of that is because the balance changes, although made him playable, number 1, made him fun to play, number 2, but number 3, he's now too strong. So they buffed him to a point to where, and now that so many people have been starting to level him, they had a bunch of random offers that all of a sudden had you buy Ink and Craig packs. That seemed a little suspicious, but we know the reasoning now because he is so freaking strong. People can run adventure lock decks because of the 3 cards in G are easily obtainable, because of the fact that adventure only has 3 legendary cards in it. Yes, I know that most themes have 3 legendary cards in it, but it seems like a wide amount of packs recently are guaranteeing copies of Stain of Many Moons and Ink and Craig, if there are adventure packs that have been purchasable most recently. So you've seen a lot of level 4 Ink and Craigs, even level 5 Ink and Craigs. I've seen a couple level 5 Ink and Craigs, a lot of level 4 Stain of Many Moons, more so than you saw in the past. And you see how good a level 5 Pocahontas Randy is. You see that people are starting to use Sharon at level 5 and even level 6 and have been devastating. Ink and Craig is so good. He basically is a wipe card for most swarm, most units. He does a decent amount of damage to the new kid. He doesn't provide a ton of value as far as his attack is concerned, but his health buff it can be overwhelming at times. And then there are just a lot of people that are pairing him with Mystical. Then you can just throw down a Ninju on top of him, and then he gets that much more damage. Yes, he has low attack range, but that doesn't really matter because the rest of him is so good that even if Incan Craig dies, that just gives you that much more potential to get him back again, to use his beam again, to wipe out half the board again. So, Incan Craig, to me now, and to many people, is the best legendary card in the game. So people continue to ask me that. Druzy, what's the best legendary card in the game? I just told you. It's Incan Craig right now. And that's the way the meta is shifting. That's the way the meta is focused. And that's the changes and the focus of the adventure theme. So let's go ahead and move on to Sci-Fi. All right, guys, looking at Sci-Fi here, 2 cards have changed, and I have bracketed them for the Sci-Fi theme. The number 1, the only change that actually happened as far as a change in a recent buff, is Space Warrior Token. So only 2 cards got changed in the last update, which was Space Warrior Token and Witch Doctor Token, which we will talk about Witch Doctor Token here in a second. But Space Warrior Token has now shifted up from the B tier to the A tier because of his change. The only change that was received to Space Warrior Token was a 1 energy decrease to his overall cost. So he went from a 3 energy cost unit to a 2 energy cost unit. So because of that, he and Enforcer Jimmy, both extremely good rare cards in this theme, are now in the A tier for sure. He has bumped up a tier because of the fact that he has lost that energy cost, and his stats weren't really amazing. They are decent, but they weren't. But now the fact that he is now 1 energy cost less, he can be used a lot more often. You're going to see him a lot more in silver, a lot more in bronze. Like I've mentioned multiple times, I'm sure you guys have been noticing that for those of you down in those ranks right now in PvP. But I myself has even seen him as a resurgence now in Legendary Arena. Most people seem to have him around level 5, seems to be the norm. There are some level 6s. I have not yet seen a level 7 Space Warrior Token. I'm sure there are some out there, but I haven't seen one yet. So, I'm not saying that he's going to have a huge resurgence in Legendary Arena. I just feel like in the current balance and the current structure of all the arenas right now, taking that into consideration, Space Warrior Token deserves to be bumped up to the A tier just because of his value right now. I have moved up the visitors from C tier to B tier because of their buff. I feel like they are in a better place right now. They are definitely a lot stronger. You're seeing a lot more resurgence of them. You're seeing a lot more events that are focusing and having them as event cards in those event decks and whatnot. And just because, again, you're not seeing a lot of people using poison. You're not seeing a lot of people using direct cancels to deal with them. Arrow Storm is still very viable and still very widely used right now in this meta. That is probably the best and most often used direct cancel for something like visitors. But you're seeing that even with someone like an Elven King Bradley and Bounty Hunter Kyle, or even just Bounty Hunter Kyle, if you leave visitors alone with their insane attack speed, they will devastate a push, or at least dwindle down a push. They can cancel out even some epic assassin cards, like I have killed multiple level 5 Hermes Kenny. If I can keep visitors alive back behind the new kid, they can just dwindle it down very quickly, because again, they have extremely fast attack speed for their base attack, and because of that, with the buff to their base damage, their base health, they're actually playable now. And because of this battle pass, a lot of people are going to be getting them. If you get the premium pass for the battle pass, you can get them all the way to level 5, even if you didn't have the card before. So that is something to also take into consideration, and a reason why, to me, visitors are just going to see even more of a resurgence once people finally get them all the way to level 5, and you're just going to see them more in the Sci-Fi meta. Although Sci-Fi still is struggling right now, visitors are definitely in a better spot. That's why they got bumped up. And I bracketed Alien Drone because I think Alien Drone is flirting with A tier right now for me. I feel like his defensive abilities are insanely good. I feel like people are underestimating how good Alien Drone can be in certain situations. It cannot be affected by certain abilities. It can be frozen, it cannot be poisoned, and it cannot be mind controlled. So those are definitely 2 things. It can also not be directly canceled. So that is also something that can keep into consideration. There is a lot of positives for Alien Drone. It can do a lot of good in canceling out something like a Cyborg Kenny, canceling out a lot of other flying units, and you're going to, I'm sure, see more flying units as the Superheroes theme comes out, and I feel like Alien Drone is going to become even more and more meta just because of that. And you're seeing more people now have Alien Drone to level 5, more to level 4. I have him to level 4 currently. I don't know why I'm calling him because it's not necessarily a specific sex or anything like that as far as what the unit is. But Alien Drone definitely, I feel like, is a much stronger unit right now within the current meta, and I feel like it's flirting with A tier. I'm not quite yet committed to giving it the A tier just yet, but I feel like it's very close. That's why I bracketed. That's why I want to discuss it. And yeah, what are your thoughts on Alien Drone? What are your thoughts about any of these that we're going to be discussing throughout this video? Always let me know down in the comment section. But let's move on now to Mystical. Alright guys, looking at Mystical, there are no changes as far as where the cards lie as far as their tier from last month. I feel like they're still all in the same spot. But we did bracket Witch Doctor Token, of course, like we discussed. It did receive a 5% nerf to overall health scaling. I feel like there's been no effect to the amount of times he's been used. I feel like he's still widely used within this current meta. I still feel like a lot of people still have him at level 3, level 4 right now, and he's still very useful. I don't think that he suffered any loss in his overall strength because of the 5% health decrease. I feel like he dies a little bit easier, obviously, but I don't feel like he's less useful. I feel like people are still definitely using him, and he's still definitely a very strong unit and very annoying to deal with if you don't deal with him correctly. So I still feel like Witch Doctor Token definitely is still in the G tier. And I also bracketed Medusa Bebe out of this tier because I think Medusa Bebe is slowly slipping down to A. Unless you have Medusa Bebe to level 4, level 5, I don't think Medusa Bebe has the same amount of value like she used to have in the past, or even in the earlier parts of the recent restructuring of legendaries and epics within the meta structure. I feel like Medusa Bebe is slowly slipping down just because her health scaling is very good, her damage is not as great given her attack speed and how weak it is. Her snakes are okay, but they're not really the usefulness of her kit. It's the fact that she can cancel out and deal with other cards that could be negatively affect her by turning them into a snake. But I feel like Medusa Bebe still has value. I still feel like she's right around. She's very low G tier right now, very high A tier, but I think like she might be slipping down. I feel like personally a level 6 Blood Elf Bebe is stronger than a level 3 Medusa Bebe. That is my opinion, and some of you may agree or disagree with me on that. I think because of the fact that a common card at obviously a very high level, level 6, which level 7 is cap, is as strong as a level 3 legendary card, gives some leeway to say that this legendary card may not be as strong as we thought it was, or at least as strong as I currently think it is right now. I still feel like Medusa Bebe definitely has value, and she's still a very strong card, but I think that she is slipping down a little bit just because of the fact that unless you have her to level 4 or level 5, which are plenty of people that do, and there even is one that has her to level 7, maybe 2 now, that have her to level 7, because of all the offers that have come out for her over the past. I feel like Medusa Bebe is struggling a bit, but she's still very strong, like I said, and could very well stay in this tier and she's going to stay in this tier for at least for this month. We may reevaluate here going forward, especially once new stuff continues to happen and balance changes continue to happen. But as of right now, Medusa Bebe flirting with A, in my opinion. But now, let's quickly move on to Fantasy. Alright guys, quickly looking at Fantasy, we got 3 cards to highlight here again. We got Cock Magic, Elven King Bradley, and Grand Wizard Cartman. I believe I talked about at least 2 of these, if not all of these, in the last month's breakdown. Cock Magic right now is probably one of the most widely used spells. If anyone's running Fantasy right now, you're almost guaranteed to see Cock Magic in the high tiers of Legendary Arena. You may not see Cock Magic at all in Silver. You may not. You're definitely probably not going to see it at all in Bronze. But you are definitely going to see it a lot in Legendary Arena. If you're around mid tier of Legendary Arena, top 1,000 for sure, you're going to see a decent amount of Cock Magic play. If that's something that you're running up against, Cock Magic has extremely high value to cancel out multiple units, obviously based on its level, to turn them into cocks that make them a little bit less useful. And then the fact that you can pair it with something like Labar Jimmy, or even Blood Elf Bebe, or something along those effects, to cancel all them out very quickly or get rid of them and use them to your advantage. You can just see the value in Cock Magic being a useful card, and it's going to be used multiple times by that person. You're never going to see Cock Magic used probably just once in a match. You're probably going to see at least 2 or 3 times, and oftentimes, at least myself, I find myself not kind of foregoing it and thinking that Cock Magic isn't back yet, or they're not going to use the card. But it seems like most of my opponents have found a strategical way to use it to their advantage much more often than I myself have been able to when I use the card. But I definitely feel like there's very high value for Cock Magic, and it definitely doesn't need to be undervalued in this current meta structure. I think Elven King Bradley is the second best new addition to this game now, behind Dragon Slayer Red. I still think Dragon Slayer Red is the best new addition card that's been added to this game because of just her value and how good she is. Elven King Bradley has been ultimately mega game changing, and he's even more so just seems to get better and better as people continue to level him up and find different combinations to use with him. The buffs that he gives to all range units is so underappreciated in how strong it can be. And you're seeing a lot more people now have him at level 4, level 5. I don't know how many or if any have him to level 6 yet, but I'm sure that many will try to start working towards that. If you're running fantasy, you need to have a decently leveled Elvin King Bradley to be ultimately effective, and this card I feel like could even push some people out of Silver Shield into Bronze, or out of Silver Shield in the Legendary Arena if he's paired with the right cards at the right levels. I feel like, again, Blood Elf Bebe is so strong in this theme. Amazingly, Randy is very good in this theme as well, and there are plenty of other ranged cards that can benefit from Elvin King Bradley. If you can figure out a strategic way to keep him alive, especially as long as you can keep him alive, he is just going to make that much more value and that much more damage potential to all your other units, to where Elvin King Bradley is extremely strong. Grand Wizard Cartman right now is flirting with me to fall from A tier to B, similar to what we discussed with the mystical theme in Medusa Bebe falling. And the reason because of that, because I don't see Grand Wizard Cartman being played quite as much as I did in the past. I feel like there has been a heavy resurgence of Zen Cartman a little bit more recently. I know that Zen Cartman never really fell off the meta, but I feel like Zen Cartman is being used more often. You're seeing a lot more people using even someone like Mr. Slave over Grand Wizard Cartman within this own theme as a tank. Grand Wizard Cartman at 6 energy costs is a hefty price to pay for a card that usually gets directly canceled out pretty quickly from almost everyone running direct cancel cards in all their decks. I don't run direct cancels all the time, so when I don't, Grand Wizard Cartman can be devastating, but for the most of the people that do play direct cancels, you're going to see Grand Wizard Cartman pretty much eliminated just like that. And then if you don't play Pope Timmy with him, he's useless to me. I mean, if he's played with any other theme, you're basically just losing 6. You're basically losing, 6 energy out the door every time you cast him out, because he's pretty much going to be direct canceled, and you can't get him back on the field fast enough. And then every time you play him, you're just wasting energy pretty much, because all the direct cancels are 1 energy unit cost lower than what he is. So they're actually gaining a positive energy trade every time they cancel him out. I feel like his health scaling is okay. His damage potential doesn't seem to be quite as high as I once thought. His increase to the damage of his ability is nice, or his charge ability is nice, but I feel like he's just not as good and synergizes as well with some of the other themes right now. I really struggled to try to make a deck work with him the other day, and it was probably my own deck build personally. I'm sure many of you have found Grand Wizard Cartman, but to be useful. But I don't see a lot of high-tier ladder people running Grand Wizard Cartman right now. I feel like they're using a lot of other cheaper tanks that provide more value. I feel like Osimo has more value right now. Zen Cartman has a lot more value, especially at level 6, 5, and 6, than Grand Wizard Cartman does even at level 3. A level 4 Grand Wizard Cartman might change a lot of people's minds, or my mind, of saying he needs to fall from A tier. But he's flirting with losing his A tier level right now, just because the fact that it's hard to really make him work if you don't have something to bring him back almost immediately, which aka means Pope Timmy. I feel like he needs Pope Timmy to be the most effective and to remain in this tier, but maybe I'm wrong. Let me know what you guys think down below, but let's quickly talk about neutral and then wrap up the video discussing where the tiers lie this month. Alright guys, on to the neutral theme. Also, no changes to the neutral theme similar to Mystical. I didn't change the way any cards looked, because I feel like they're all still in the same spot from where I previously ranked them. Santa, to me, is used a lot more, I'm noticing, in the top 500 legendary than I've noticed in the past. I'm feeling a lot more people have him to level 4, level 5 now, and he's definitely extremely strong. I definitely don't question him being in G tier. He's still definitely G tier out of this theme. But if you see a Santa, pretty much be prepared for an adventure theme, almost guaranteed, and mystical, almost guaranteed. Pretty much the only themes that I've seen mostly used with Santa Claus are fantasy, mystical, and adventure. I don't see sci-fi used hardly at all with Santa, because there's just not a lot of sci-fi cards that really benefit with using their charge abilities to the same effect as those other 3 themes that I just mentioned. And I feel like Santa isn't going to go anywhere anytime soon, and could most likely still be very viable when this new theme comes out, once we get more information on those new cards, to where you could definitely see Santa definitely remain in this meta for a long time to come until Red Lynx changes it. Santa is definitely one of the strongest, if not probably the strongest tank in the entire game right now. He has insane damage potential, insane value with his charge ability and what he can provide to other charged units, to where Santa Claus is extremely strong right now. Classy and Satan still remain in C tier like they did last month, but Classy to me needs a definite change, and I think I know what she needs. Health scale. She needs to change to her health scaling. She needs to increase the amount of her overall base health, if you increase her overall base health, I feel like Classy would be in a better spot. Her rage ability has value if you allow her to frickin' use it. She doesn't even get to use it because it seems like the second she enrages, she's dead within a second. Like, she gets hit one more time and she's gone. I feel like Classy would be viable if she had some health scaling. That's the only change that needs to be done to her. Other than that, I feel like everything else with her is relatively balanced. But again, she needs some health scaling of some degree. I don't know what percentage. I'd say maybe 10 to 15%. Maybe that's too much. But it needs to be something. 5% is not going to be enough to me. It needs to be a little bit more than that. And once hopefully that happens, maybe we'll see. Maybe I'll be able to actually make some Classy decks. I just got Classy to level 4. You guys have been wanting me to play her in streams just because more, I guess, for hilarity value than anything else. And I can't do it. She can't be played right now at level 4 with this current meta because she just dies too quickly. And at 5 energy cost, it's just not worth it. If she was maybe 4 energy cost, that would be different, and then you don't maybe have to change her stats at all. But her energy cost needs to change, or her stats need to change if you want her to be viable in the current meta right now, and that's how I feel with Classy. With Satan, I feel like Satan also will need a buff here in the relative future. I think the only change he needs is a slight re-increase of his base ability, so that explosion that he gets when he, spawns in, that needs to be buffed slightly. A very small percentage, I'd say maybe 2 to 3%, 2 to 5% more than what it is right now. It's too low. It doesn't provide any value to the cost that he is. There are some people that have Satan to a very high level because there have been a ton of offers for Satan in the last few months. So you've seen possibly some Satan play, but you're not seeing Satan to the level that we did when he first came out because he was OP as crap. And I know that. So I'm saying a slight tweak to his overall ability I think would make him more viable because he's a high energy cost of 6 energy to the point to where he's pretty much useless and not very good right now. I recently just got Satan to level 3 and I would like to try to play him a little bit more, try to make some decks work with him because I feel like he has a kind of a fun mechanic, but he's just not viable to me right now with the fact that his ability just doesn't do enough damage anywhere near to the scaling of what Standing Many Moons does, and they're both legendary cards and Standing Many Moons is 2 energy less. So because of that, if you're going to make Satan back into this meta, you need to increase his ability damage again, just slightly, not to the same ridiculousness that it was before, but at least a slight change will make him that much more effective. And that's all we got as far as where I think the current meta is with these individual themes. Now let's look at the theme list and see where they lie for this month again. Alright guys, so I know I sound like a broken record, but the best theme in the current meta still to me is still Mystical. I feel like no changes have been made as far as where the themes lie as far as their ranking. Fantasy is very, very close to overtaking Mystical, though. They've been neck and neck for a long time, don't get me wrong, but having to run a fantasy only deck, and I did make a video on it here just a couple videos ago where I did a fantasy only deck, and I don't think I could make a Mystical only deck and be quite as effective as I was with a fantasy only deck. Now, does that mean to me that fantasy is now better than Mystical because of that fact? I still feel like no. I still feel like Mystical has more top heavy cards than fantasy does. I feel like fantasy has more. Fantasy synergizes together very, very well. Mystical synergizes together very, very well too, but I feel like fantasy, for the most part, still needs a little bit to overtake Mystical. Not much, because it's right there. It's very, very close at the top two. In fact, you could possibly just put Mystical and Fantasy tied for first place at this point, and not even there be a second, because that's just how good both those themes currently are right now. But I still feel like Fantasy is a little under Mystical as far as strength, and until some changes come to the Mystical theme, Fantasy to me will kind of always be second, or at least tied with Mystical right now. What do you guys think in the current meta structure? Do you agree, disagree with any of the things that we discussed in this video? I'm sure most of you will most likely agree with the things that I've said. And again, not a lot changed this month, as from last month we had a lot to discuss and really open up this series. But this series is going to continue going forward. I plan to continue to update it, and I'm really excited to next month be adding the new theme to this and seeing where the new theme lies as far as and in retrospect to the current themes right now. I feel like it's going to be very hard to assess how strong the theme is going to be, because it may take some time for us to get all those cards to a decent level. So maybe a few months before we get the real picture of how strong Superheroes is going to be. But I'm very excited to discuss all that information about the Superheroes theme when it goes live. Hopefully the information will be able to go live next Monday, and when that does happen, I will bring you all the information that I have and all of the exciting news that's going to be coming when the new thing comes out. I'm very excited to share that all with you guys. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and until next time, guys, my name is Druzy.